We shall see. Can he deny the rematch? Again, our Zerg player here was the runner-up of last week's tournament. Will he reprise that role and make it to the finals once again? Here we go. Spawning in the top left-hand corner of Site Delta, we have the South Korean Zerg player, the Red Zerg representing Gaiman Gladiators. It is SHIN. And spawning in the bottom right-hand corner, we have his opponent. We have the Canadian Protoss player, the Blue Protoss representing Basilisk. It is Trigger. And if you're in the chat, predictions are now open. Place your bets on who you think will claim the series. As a reminder, this is a best of 3, and this prediction is for the entirety of the series. Best of luck. As SHIN is going hatch gas pool. He's getting into his opener. Likewise, Trigger back at home, going for the gate expand. Now, we were able to see Trigger's PvZ earlier today against Mixu, and Trigger was, again, very fast, very intense when it came to his Oracle and Adept Harass, was quite successful with it. We'll see if he can achieve that again here against SHIN. Cast is now being taken. Trigger being as annoying as possible. Likewise, SHIN is not the most standard of players either. We recently casted, I say recently, last night we covered SHIN versus Trap in a PvZ in the grand finals of the Sparkling Tuna Cup, and SHIN did not play standard at all. He was just always in the face of Trap with Ling aggression, with Ling Bane, with Roach Ravager, with these timings, with these all-ins essentially. There were some games where Trap was the aggressor instead, but for the most part, SHIN was in his face. Can play standard, don't get me wrong. Can play standard, but often doesn't. There we go. As the probe is going to be forced back. Back at home, Stargate opener from Trigger. Nothing too crazy so far. Stargate going for Oracles. And SHIN will soon be taking that third. Trigger attempting to confirm, and he will. Third base is spotted, and the probe will get away. SHIN is making an extra wave of Lings here. It's going to be 8 Lings in total, which is quite a bit more than usual here. We'll have them to harass to keep up with the Adepts, to minimize losses. And if the Adepts go down, SHIN can then threaten the third base. The things are very quickly snowball out of control. Yeah, more Lings are on the way. SHIN does want that map control. Adepts are racing back home. And we'll see if SHIN can catch them. Link speed about to kick in. SHIN moving out across the map. Third base has been placed. Oracle moves out as well, and Trigger will get eyes on all these Lings. He's fully aware of what's going on. Adepts are in position. And SHIN is going to try to go for the surround. Pro doing an amazing job here at just buffering, at body blocking. One Adept will fall. When can SHIN get the other? Barely can. Gets both. Guess who gets all 3? 3 Adepts going to be going down at the same time. Oracle across the map gets 1 drone. Just the 1. And SHIN does outtrade. Things back at home. We're able to defend. Oof. Oracle forcing a cancel. But alas, SHIN does save his workers, only losing 1 drone so far. 1 drone going down. Trigger, his third base is exposed. More Lings on the way. Trigger doesn't quite get more workers. The Oracles, they take a lot of damage, a lot of hits. Oof. That's enough damage here on these Oracles. Trigger being forced back. And behind this Trigger, he's working towards a standard transition. We have a Forge, we have a Twilight Council, a Robo as well. getting to +1 and blink. But until then, we'll see if he can hold on to his third. The Oracles, they come in for a second round. 2 Oracles towards the third, 1 Oracle towards the natural. SHIN is keeping up. SHIN does defend. Oh my god. Almost gets an Oracle. Interesting. Now, I assumed it was going to be +1 and blink, but no, Trigger's going for +1 and charge into Charge Lot Archon. Okay. I mean, we saw something similar in Game 1 against Mixu. If you recall, similar. If you recall in that game, Trigger did go for earlier Immortal and earlier Robo and Immortal production. This time is headed in a similar direction. SHIN, meanwhile, going for the Spire. We mentioned earlier that SHIN, he himself is not the most standard of players, is being hyper-aggressive with Lings early on, and rushing into Mute-Attack. Stays in the main. Oh, no reaction! Delayed reaction by SHIN. Nicely done here by Trigger. Finally gets some counter damage. Finally does get across the map. At the same time, SHIN moving out and will deny the fourth. Oof. Forcing a cancel. Even cleaning up these Zealots. These Zealots are a tell. Now SHIN is aware. I mean, he scouts the main. But he is aware of the Charge Lot Archon. And that's going to make it even more difficult here for Trigger to keep up with the mutants. There's no Blink Stalkers. No Blink Stalkers. No Phoenixes. No Scout yet from the Protoss. Oh, another Stasis in the main. Oh my god. The back-to-back Stasis. SHIN a little bit too distracted. But Trigger has yet to confirm. It looks like he did spot the Spire. And there we go. Cannons are on the way. Cannons at the third. There we go. Cannons in the natural. That is to tell. Trigger knows. I'm assuming, otherwise there's no reason to get static defense in the natural base. The main is still looking exposed. Phoenix production has not begun. There we go. Cannon in the main. And there it is. First Phoenix is on the way. So Trigger, he did spot it. He did spot it. He is aware. Phoenix is Mute is moving out. Trigger is fortifying himself. As they rotate towards the natural. Stalkers in position. More cannons, more shield batteries. Arguably too many cannons. you could argue. But regardless, the mutas are forced back. Well, they will pick off a Phoenix. Not bad. One Phoenix goes down. SHIN pulling away. Now, how many mutas did he invest into? 6 mutas. Only 6 mutas. That's only enough to harass. Going for the High Templar. Gets 1. Gets 2. Massive pickoffs. Gets a 3rd High Templar. 3 High Templar go down, and now SHIN moving out with Roach Ravager. And there's only 1 Storm. Only 1 High Templar left. Those are massive pickoffs. Storm is spent. But alas, we should have had 3 more. There should have been 3 more Storms. Alas, SHIN is maxed out. He's going for the dive. Massive stasis does go up. The stasis traps for Trigger. Harassing and defending as well. They've been popping off. SHIN still gaining ground across the map. Zealot counterattack will wreak havoc. Mineral line will fall. Well, that's 9 drones going down. Queens as well. The Zealots are doing a lot. But can a Trigger hold? He has 1 more Storm. It's going to be spent, but the main army gets surrounded. Files connect. And SHIN is snowballing out of control. He may have lost the mineral line, but it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. As the 4th base has been broken. And SHIN is still just rallying across the map. Again, the mutas were the MVPs. Even though they got scattered, even though there was no big commitment into the mutas, they caught 3 High Templar. Full of energy as well. And with that Trigger, he's now up against the wall, stuck on 3 bases. The probes are caught out. And Shin can now focus his attention on the 3rd. Behind this, droning up. Lurker Den on the way. Hive is done as well. Shin getting ready for a Lurker transition. Shin splitting off an army. Going for a link run by. Again, Trigger trying to keep up, but alas, the win condition here for Shin is just to contain. Just to maintain that base lead. And keep a Trigger on a 3 bases. Lings, they flood into the natural, they flood into the main as well. Hero! No! As the wall was not a wall, it was wide open. The Lings aren't getting much damage. Contamination in the main. Love to see it. But the Lings, they only get 3 probes. Not bad. It really is hero. I mean, it makes sense because we have cannons, right? The cannons from the mutas earlier did defend, so the Lings, they don't do any damage. They catch 5 probes, which is something. But that could have been so much worse. Could have been so much worse. The cannons coming into play. 4th base in production. Trigger is attempting to stabilize. Now, on the one hand, things are looking okay for Trigger. He defends, he's getting a 4th base, he's building up his army. That is all true. The problem here is the Lurkers. Is the Lurker tech. As we have, what, 6 Lurkers on the way, 6 already done. It's going to be 12 Lurkers in total for Shin, and Lurker upgrades are on the horizon as well. So Shin's army is becoming more and more well-defined, more refined even. And Trigger's going to have a hard time pushing in. Lurkers are set up. Shin does need some support for the Lurkers, though. Getting in position. Storms do connect. Nice storms! But it's still not enough. Trigger has to pull back. Does get 7 workers in the mineral line. Nicely done. Trigger rotating around. Zelarambe hit towards the north. Gets the spine crawler. Distracting Shin. Shouldn't get into the mineral line. I say that the spines are going down. These are +3 zealots. The upgrades have been on point. Bearing in mind, Trigger does have +3. Zealots are cleaned up. More lurkers on the way. Oh my god. Getting up to 14 lurkers. Looks like 3 lurkers went down to the storms earlier. To the main army. Shin building up his lurker count, walling up with more spine crawlers. Trigger rotating around. Trigger is still very much so in this. Nice stasis. Lurkers are exposed. Yeah, Shin being forced back. Again, a lot of these lurkers, they don't really have much support. A lurker going down. Trigger trading well. Again, the immortal count is looking quite terrifying. Lurkers, they can do nicely against a ground army, if not against this. Against Archon Immortal. Trigger can brute force his way through. +1 air attack on the way. Trigger is thinking about Sky Toss. Rotating around, denying creep. Shin is now contained. And behind this, Trigger takes another expansion. Getting a 5th. 5th base is on the way. Shin out of position. Unable to keep up with the rotation. Storm goes up, takes down the Hydras, and the base is going to fall as well. Massive pickoff. Shin down to 4 expansions, 4 hatcheries against 4 Nexus, or 5 even. Shin down to base. Going for a 2nd Spire. Working on upgrades. But again, Shin cannot dive on this army. Oof, oh my god, massive storms. Roach counterattack does get spotted. Trigger pulling back. Stasis does go off, giving him time. 4 Stargates on the way. Trigger getting into Sky Toss. And Trigger, he's back in the driver's seat despite how dire the situation was looking earlier. Shin, you could argue he stuck around or stuck on Ling Road Ravager a little bit too long. Trigger has stabilized. Massive Storm. And again, Shin is still just stuck at home building up more lurkers. Meanwhile, carrier production has begun. Trigger is in control. Catching out more lurkers. It's gonna be 8 more lurkers on the way. Jeez, we have, oh my god, we have 25, soon to be 27 lurkers, but we're not in position. Once again, as Shinny just cannot keep up. The base is exposed. And lurkers are going down. Massive Storm, and the hatchery is going to go down once again. Meanwhile, Shin going for a desperation Night Storm across the map. Trigger not in position. He has to recall. Uh-oh. Night Storm, it's going to finish. Carriers are on the way. There's the mothership. Mothership to defend. Can cloak. Just the one lurker. Trigger, he commits. There is no detection. The one lurker is getting damage. Oof. Yeah, big spine shots going off. Again, bearing in mind, Trigger cannot push into lurkers. That's why Trigger has been rotating the entire time. Lurkers, they get across the map. Shin getting some breathing room, forcing back the army. Still the one lurker in the main. Trigger doesn't want to pull back, though. Doesn't want to pull away. Again, beautiful. Oh my god, insane storm. The expansion is going to go down. Really saved by the cloak. The game is getting chaotic. The expansion is saved. Finally, Trigger has control of his bases. Another Nidus on the right-hand side. Shin still trying to expand. Shin is holding on. Trigger's pushing in between the bases. Night Templar, no! Night Templar! Oh my god! Calm down! Night Templar getting caught. And that means that many less storms. There's only 3 High Templar. 3 High Templar left. Pushing out once again. More lurkers on the way. Wraith armies is still comparable. Oof. Yeah, again, Trigger just cannot push into these lurkers. Not head on like that. Shin now has +3 of his own. Has his upgrades. Trigger rotating. This expansion towards the north is looking exposed once again. It's looking vulnerable. How many lurkers? 21. 21 lurkers for Shin. Pulls away a little bit too much. The base is exposed. Yeah, Shin out of position. Expansion goes down. Ooh, massive storms on the lurkers. Mothership should fall. Oh, but the storm on the Hydras. Oh my god, the Hydras, they melt. Hydras, they take it to the face. Trigger pulling back. He will lose a carrier, but does trade well. Panic recall. Calm down, Trigger. I mean, Trigger is ahead. He's excited. Calm down. That does mean recall is no longer available on the mothership. He's excited, man. He's excited. He knows. He's so close. More carriers are amassing. He's up to 6 High Templar. As the Vipers are denied. Nice feedbacks here from Trigger. Yeah, the Vipers, they do nothing. I mean, they were sniping. They did snipe a carrier earlier. Nice stasis here on the main army. And Trigger, he's going for the expansion. He is going to get surrounded, though. Shin trying to collapse in. Trigger, he has to back off. Doesn't get the base. Trigger pulls away. He's able to shut down the flank. Yeah, Shin, the surround is denied. More Vipers in production. Shin, he holds on to the expansion. For the first time in a long time, he's on 5 base. Oh, he's actually still on 4. And never mind. That's still in 4 bases. Has a fresh mining base, though. A crucial expansion for Shin. Zealot run by is denied. Trigger pushing forward. Where are the lurkers? Uh-oh. The lurkers once again, they know where they need to be. Shin, he's all in. He's completely all in. The base falls. No economy left for Shin. It's all or nothing. He has how many lurkers? 16. 16 lurkers, 4 Vipers, and Mass Hydra. And we're going for a base trade. We're going for the base trade. Trigger does have a recall if need be. Does have a base recall. The mothership is still up and running as well. Mothership into the main. And there we have the recall into the main base as well. Going for the tech. Shin turns around. Does find bottom left. Does find an expansion. Hydra Den, Lurker Den, everything's getting sniped. Shin will go for bottom left. And these bases here for Trigger, they're running out of money, running out of resources. Trigger on a 1 base economy. Does recall his workers to safety. That means there's no more recalls left for Trigger. We'll get another expansion. Shin makes it back home in time to defend his last mining base. And Trigger doesn't have to commit. But the yoinks! Gets a carrier. Up. Has to spend 2 abductions, but does get 1. Shin is on half a base. Trigger on 1 full base mining. Storms are coming in. Oh my god, massive feedbacks. Massive storms as well. But 4 High Templar go down. Was that worth it? Oh my god, the storms are insane! Storms are popping up, but it does push up a ramp into lurkers. The army is low. GG gets called. Shin, he runs out of steam, and Trigger, he fights back, and he takes game number 1. Whew. GG. Oh my god. GG, well played. Very, very impressive there by Trigger. Trigger had a rough start. He had a very rough start. If you remember, it was Trigger that was denied the 4th. He was denied the 4th base. He was being called out. His High Templar went down to the Mutas. As a reminder, it was a Spire opener. I said Spire opener. It was initially Mutas here from Shin into Ling Roach Ravager. Was doing very well early on, but Trigger did stabilize. Again, you could definitely argue that Shin took a little bit too long to transition out of Ling Roach Ravager. Did throw away a lot of Lings, if you recall, going for the run-by. And Trigger did eventually stabilize, did bring it back, and did take game number 1. Whew. GG. GG, well played. In the aftermath, it wasn't just that. If you recall, Shin was having a really hard time keeping up with the rotations of Trigger. I see someone asking, like, why no Corruptors? If you recall, I mean, there's a response in the chat, but if you recall, Shin had no economy. He was denied the 4th base and the 5th base over and over and over again. Again, he was just having such a hard time keeping up with the rotations. Because of that, his economy was quite limited. Likewise, he couldn't quite invest into upgrades for those Corruptors as well. He was going, if you remember, he was going for a 2nd Spire, but wasn't quite able to invest. And again, it wasn't really the Sky Toss that was killing him. It was the Ground Army, it was the Archons, it was the Immortals, it was the High Templar, it was the Storm. It was really catching him off guard. Really, the carriers were more of a supportive unit for Trigger. But regardless, we're settling in. Settling in. And we're moving out. Spawning in the bottom left-hand corner of Dynasty. A very odd map. I'm surprised that we're loading into this map of all maps, as it is often vetoed. We have the South Korean Zerg player, the Red Zerg, representing Gaiman Gladiators. It is Shin. And spawning in the top right-hand corner, leading the series 1-0, we have the Canadian Protoss player representing Basilisk. It is Trigger. Trigger, he checks, he scouts the goal base, making sure that Shin isn't being cheeky. Shin going for the standard expansion. Now, when it comes to Dynasty, it is one of the most vetoed maps in the map pool, and whenever we see it in a Zerg game, whether it's against Terran or Protoss, usually they take the gold. And you can see Trigger even checks. He checks to see if the gold base was taken on his side or across the map, and Shin hasn't gone for the gold, so already I'm concerned. Usually we see like all-ins from Zerg players. Zerg players that go for all-ins typically on this map. A macro game is very difficult for Zerg on Dynasty. The reason for this is the gold. Trigger, a Protoss or a Terran player can take the gold base quite freely. The Zerg player cannot. Hello, drone. As Shin is moving out with a worker, and he's going for the proxy hatch. We're going for an all-in. This is for the course here on Dynasty. Like, macro games are not often successful for Zerg players here on this map. So Trigger should be aware that something is wrong, but this is a very unique build. again, this is a much later proxy hatchery for SHIN. Not as early as Trigger was expecting, so Trigger's not scouting. Everything looks normal. It's hatch gas full. Everything looks normal from the side of SHIN. We know that it's anything but. Okay, so a delayed proxy hatchery from the Zerg player. From here he can spread creep, he can reinforce across the map. Are we feeling like spine crawlers? Question mark? I'm really curious how this plays out. I believe as well that the creep isn't going to be spotted when the creep spreads from the hatchery itself. It's going to be close. As Trigger does reinforce, as main out over. Yep, it's spine crawlers. Boys are being pulled. And we're going for a delayed spine rush on the mineral line. This is very interesting. A very unique approach from SHIN. I have not seen this build before. I'll be honest. We cast StarCraft on a daily basis here. We cast a lot of StarCraft. This I have not seen. Spine crawlers are being thrown down. And the creep is spotted. Trigger, he knows. He does spot the creep. Trigger is aware. A Trigger gonna try and respond with pylons, with shield batteries. It was an Oracle opener, and I don't think there's a way for Trigger to deal with this. Like, how does he clean up these spine crawlers? He has adepts and oracles. And the spine crawlers are about to finish, and they're about to get within range. That shit even taking the gas. Takes the high yield gas geyser. Queen has arrived. Spine crawlers started stepping forward. They do get within range. And what can Trigger do? Nothing. A Trigger, he can make a Void Ray. Yep, there we go. Void Ray's on the way. Like, the Void Ray is the best option here for Trigger, considering his production. Oracle will snipe the Queen. But Lings, they hit the front lines. They're going to be keeping that Void Ray busy. Going for the Stargate, going for the Cyber Core. More Lings are on the way. More Spine Crawlers as well. Sorry, more Spore Crawlers even. That's crazy. Going for a Spore Rush alongside the Spine Crawlers. SHIN, he's wild. Second Stargate on the way. Trigger is going Mass Void Ray. Forced to main out over. Does have a 2-base economy. Void Ray has arrived. But there are Spore Crawlers. The overcharge will top up the Void Ray though. The Void Ray, can we clean this up? The first Spore is going to go down, but just the first. Void Ray falls, massive pickoff. At the same time, Lings are still wreaking havoc, still going for the Stargate. The Stargate is being targeted, and the overcharge was just used. Overcharge now on cooldown. Oh, the Oracle has arrived. Lings are not breaking through. Trigger's holding. He holds the natural. Barely. Oh, I say that, Lings, they come back. Lings, they have returned. SHIN has thrown away a lot of Lings this game. That is, I say that, only 16. 8 more on the way. Lair tells us that SHIN is backing off. He's backing off. He should be transitioning. Droning up, taking a third base. SHIN is calming things down. Meanwhile, the Mass Void Ray turning into Mass Phoenix instead. You have my attention. Well, as that Queen is getting quite a lot of damage. Phoenixes are amassing. Trigger is still on a 2-base economy. SHIN wants that Stargate. Well, there's another overcharge. Stargate is saved. Now, SHIN does get eyes on the Phoenixes. SHIN is aware. He's aware of the Phoenixes, and we're going to need Queens and Spores. The Queen count is very low. The reason why the Queen count is low is because of this proxy. And the proxy is being cleaned up. Yeah, with the help of shield batteries, this one Void Ray does stand strong. Oh, we almost have a transfuse. Oh, just barely. Transfuse does go off. But the Void Ray will still come out on top. Takes down the Spore. SHIN long distance. SHIN long distance mining. Let's go. He's still droning. He's still saturating the gold. He's crazy. He lost his mind. Phoenixes, they get across the map. Hydra production that will soon begin. SHIN. But the Phoenixes are getting value. Catching Overlords. Catching Workers. Anti mining here at the third. Well, I guess the fourth? Is this technically the fourth base? Kappa? Queens are waddling in. We have 3 queens to work with to defend, and more spores on the way. Adept's gonna try to poke into Spine Crawlers. Phoenix is going for the dive. They go for the queen. Spine Crawler's gonna go down. Queens as well. It's gonna cost us some of these Phoenixes as the spores are going ham. Oh my god. And Shinny will still hold on to this position. I say that the queens are going down. Spine Crawler does finish. And mining is being denied. I say that Shinny still reinforces. The spores do reposition. Void Ray coming in from behind, going for the gas geyser. Stargate did eventually go down. Oh, and Trigger has to lift up these things individually one by one. Now, Trigger is aware of the Hydras. If you recall, he did scout the Hydra in, is fully aware. Behind this, getting to charge into +1 and soon to be Storm and Archons. So charged out Archon for Trigger. Does spot the Hydras. Pulling away. This is like a Zerg cannon rush, exactly. It is like a Zerg cannon rush. Airlords are being hunted down. Shin still taking full advantage of that gas geyser. Hydra's coming into support. Storm is on the way. And Trigger is still in 3 bases. Despite the drone count for Shin, I will say that Trigger has the better economy. Up. Border goes down. And at least Shin tech-wise is getting into Hive and working towards Vipers. Shin is working towards Hydra Lurker Viper. Lurker Den now on the way. At the same time, Trigger's also building up. Shin now taking a 4th. It's been a very chaotic game, and we're kind of headed towards the mid-game here in a more standard way. The Phoenixes! Gets 1, gets 2. 2 Phoenixes go down, and Mass Hydra moving out. And this army is looking terrifying, but there are storms. Really only Storm, though. The Immortal! The Immortal is caught out. An unfortunate rally here for Trigger. The Immortal goes down for free. And Trigger, he's up against the wall. Massive Storm! Storm does connect. Nice split here from Shin. Does avert the second storm for the most part. And Shin may just have too much. Cybercore under fire. There's 1 storm left. And Trigger has to make it count. No! Oh, the wrong Archon! Morphs in the Archon, uses the high energy High Templar. That was unfortunate. Oh, there's still almost 1 storm left. The Hydras are cleaned up. Not bad. Not bad. The Hydra's going to be shut down. And Trigger holds. Whew. Trigger does barely hold on. But we have 15 more Hydras on the way. And Trigger is going to need to replace those High Templar. He needs Storm again. As many Storms as possible. 5 High Templar morph in. Trigger moving out. Now with Archon Immortal, he should be able to shut this down. And Shin will evacuate. He knows the space, he can't really take advantage of it anymore. Trigger pulls back, he doesn't want to be caught out. Lunker production has begun. 8 Lurkers on the way. 8 Lurkers, Lurker range. No Vipers yet. Not for the time being. Just Hydra Lurker. Oh, the Cybercore was sniped earlier, so the Cybercore has to be rebuilt. Cybercore is on the way, but this is a very similar game state, or I should say, similar compositions that we saw previously, where Shin is going Hydra Lurker, and Trigger is getting into Immortal Archon. The difference this time, though, is that Trigger doesn't have as much map control. Shin is on 4 bases, and he's getting a 5th. 5th base is on the way. Shin is securing his economy, and the pressure right now is on Trigger to deny it. Pushing into these Lurkers is going to be difficult, but Trigger can deny the gold once he spots it. Does run into the Lurkers. Goal base is spotted. Trigger is aware. And again, he wants to try to rotate towards that base. We'll see if he can. Trigger pulling back. Zealot run by towards the north. Spine crawlers will finish up in time. There's one lurker to defend as well. And SHIN is trying to keep up. Lurker is getting in position. And this time SHIN is securing his bases. Lurkers are ready. And SHIN is maxed. That's SHIN achieving something that he could not on side Delta. But SHIN is maxed out, and he has all of his bases secure. SHIN has an economy. Not just an economy, a goal base. That's across the map. Ooh, it's a slow warp in. That is a little bit brutal. Yeah, lurkers, they do pop out. Some of them do at least. Does force a big reaction. Trigger forces to turn back around. SHIN breaking out, going towards the right-hand side. Oh, and he's even denying mining here at the center base. And Trigger is being pulled apart. Yeah, massive storm though. Trigger, oh my god, the storms! Takes down the Lynx, takes down the Hydras. And Trigger, he will take the main fight. Across the map, he's losing workers, he's losing control of his bases. He does force SHIN back. Well, can he save the expansion? It doesn't look to be the case. Yeah, the Nexus will fall. SHIN making his way to the main. This choke point is brutal. This ramp. Trigger expanding towards the top left. Okay. Taking a northern expansion. The goal base is still fresh as well. Bear that in mind. Trigger can take that later on. Once he clears up the lurkers. Trigger moving forward. SHIN is in position. Late to burrow. Storms aren't too bad. Black West here towards the north as well. Big storm. Oh my god, the storms on the hydrants. SHIN pushing in. Not like this. Yeah, lurkers are being cleaned up, and Trigger will shut this down. We'll get on top of the final lurker, cleaning up these Nidus worms. And a Trigger can finally clear up this creep and expand. Eventually. There's still that one tumor that's denying an expansion. Trigger will clean it up. At the same time, Ling Rumbai runs into cannons and shield batteries. For the first time, SHIN spots this base. He does respond. SHIN on how many lurkers? 12, now 11. 11 lurkers. Harassing towards the south. Oh, this is an expensive run by for SHIN. Bleeding out a lot of lurkers here. Doesn't get much for it. At the same time, though, do we have a recall? And not enough time. SHIN, he will claim this base. Trigger expand towards the south. And again, Trigger can still take the gold. SHIN taking into a greater spire. Thinking about Broodlords. I mean, that would be a better response here to this kind of army. Would be Broodlord instead of Hydra Lurker. There we go. Corruptors are on the way. And SHIN, he's getting ready for those Broodlords. And what is the answer to Broodlord? Skytoss. This is where Trigger is being caught out. He's not ready for a Skytoss transition. SHIN is one step ahead tech-wise. Now, what I will say is that SHIN's lurker count is very low. Because SHIN is working towards Broodlords, he only has 6 lurkers. Right now, SHIN is vulnerable. If Trigger moves in, here and now, Trigger, he could kill SHIN before Broodlords come into play. The space should fall. And SHIN forced away. Oh, that's, oh my god! The drones! 22 workers go down, 25! Zerg players look away! The storms are brutal! The goal base will be denied. A nice pickoff, but SHIN holds, and SHIN has brutes. 9 Broodlords now in production. And Trigger has no idea. Trigger doesn't see, Trigger doesn't know. Now we have a fleet beacon on the way, but again, this is a late fleet beacon for Trigger. We'll get another base, though. Broodlords are slow. Slow to react, slow to respond. The expansion should go down. Oh my god, massive storm on the Hydras. Base falls, Broodlords are scouted. Trigger knows. Oh. The army is trapped, Broodlords coming in from behind. Distracted by the Southern Army. Getting one, getting two, High Templar. Trigger is committing in. This is an expensive force here for Trigger. Now there's no recall. Is getting on top of the base. Storm on the drones, storm on the Hydras. The expansion is going to go down. Nice storms. Oh my god. Yeah, the Broodlords in the center of the map. I thought they were going to be catching out this army. Trigger will lose this, but does trade well. I mean, he shot down 2 bases. Shin on 1 mining base. But has Broodlords. That's the problem here. Shin might not have an economy, and Trigger does make sure of that. And Trigger is pulling Shin apart and sniping bases. And Shin is all in. Shin is all in at this point. He's rallying everything across the map. And Trigger has to buy time. Tempests are on the way. And the final mining base of Shin is going to go down. Oh no! The Viper! Viper gets sniped. Broodlords turn around. Broodlords are racing back home. Trigger pulls back. Oh. And the Broodlords are spotted. And they're catching out the army. Getting an Archon. Trigger, he has to get out of here. Can he save the High Templar? The army does rally over. The storms on the Broodlings, the High Templar, they're going down. The Immortals are trapped as well. It's some brutal losses for Trigger. And how many Tempests does he have? 1. Oh, 1 Tempest for Trigger. They take so long to build. The Broodlords have arrived. 10 Broodlords. Bearing in mind, no economy. There's no economy for Shin. What you see is what you get. And is there a Viper? There is one. There's one Viper, but it's across the map. The base is denied. Trigger now on half a base economy. Both players are broke. Shin is long distance mining. Trigger, I mean, has technically a better economy than Shin, barely. Shin is expanding. But Shin has the army. Now, I do favor Trigger's army with Tempest as long as we avoid the abduction, right? There's that 1 Viper. So I say 1. Ugh, now 3 Vipers. 3 Vipers for Shin. And his win condition is if he can abduct and snipe those Tempests, I mean, that's game. That is the only thing threatening those Broodlords, is the Tempest. It's going to be on Trigger to feed back the Vipers and to zone them away. Shin now has a fully operational base. Trigger is attempting to take one. Does warping across the map. Catching Overlords. Shin double expanding. Getting another base. There's a lot of Broodlords going down. Oh, sorry, I mean Overlords. The other Lord. Nah. As Trigger's building out that Tempest count. How many Tempests now? 5. Soon to be 6. Not bad. It's a pretty robust army. Trigger does have Blink. He can hunt down more Overlords. Shin is going to get supply blocked. It's a weird time to get supply blocked, but it's going to happen. Overlords are being hunted down. One more. One más, man. As Overlords are being rebuilt. More Broodlords are amassing. It's going to be 10 Broodlords. Corruptors now coming into support. Shin is securing his bases. He's on 1.5 base economy. Trigger double expanding as well. Trigger currently has map control. And with this, it looks like Trigger is going to be the first to remax. Getting into Tempest and Carrier. How many High Templar? Still only 3. I'm really concerned by the low High Templar count. Only 3. Low Archon count as well. Main army is spotted. Trigger pulling back. Like, now that the Corruptor count is getting higher, I say that. I was gonna say, with the corruptor count getting higher, that's where you do need some support for the Tempest. I'm referring to Archons, I'm referring to Storm. Otherwise, the Tempests are exposed. At the same time, though, these are 0-0 corruptors. Like, no upgrades. +1 air attack has just begun. So these corruptors are not as ideal. Both players are maxing out. Trigger going for Void Rays. I mean, Void Rays do make sense in this kind of game state, just because there are Broodlords, so Archons and High Templar are less effective thanks to the Broodlords. So Void Rays or a more Skytoss heavy composition, it makes sense. Yeah, making 2 Void Rays at a time. Joan comes in, gets 1, gets 2. Takes extra volleys, but does get 2 Tempest. Massive pickoffs. 2 Tempests go down. SHIN taking another expansion. The Spore Forest is up. +1 air attack just now finishing for SHIN. +2 about to finish up for Trigger. Trigger hunting down more Overlords. SHIN does have to rebuild them, as he is close to being supply blocked. How many Infestors do we have? 3. 3 Infestors, 3 Vipers. Not too many Spellcasters, which means we have to make them count. Will they get feedbacked? Maybe shut down. Honestly, I wouldn't be opposed to Trigger going for a recall across the map with a Mothership. This army, like, when it comes to Broodlord Infestor, this army is so immobile. It's so slow. So we could try to snipe some of these southern bases. I mean, there's no mining, but there's tech. Specifically the Greater Spire. Fungal does miss. But the Greater Spire here would be exposed. Snipes up Viper as well! Ooh, for a High Templar. They do trade. There's 2 Vipers left. Fungal comes in, catches High Templar, no follow-up, nice feedback. So Trigger, he does out-trade SHIN. SHIN down to 1 Infestor without energy. 2 Vipers. Speaking of sniping tech, Trigger, he does rotate with his ground force. Nice storm of the Corruptors. SHIN responds with the Hydras. SHIN does respond. How many Tempests do we have? 10! 10 Tempests! We're getting within range of the base. Fungal goes up. And SHIN is going for the dive, going for the power bomb as well. Cloak is activated. Vipers get sniped. Yeah, no parasitic bomb, no fungal. It's just a head-on fight at this point. Overcharges pop, massive storm of the Corruptors. Are there enough Tempests though? The Corruptors are gaining ground, they're breaking through. Hydra's coming into support. Big fungal. But how many Corruptors are there left? We're down to 8 Corruptors. Oh, the Corruptors are getting thinned out, down to 7. Down to 6. 5 Tempest. Big storm. Yeah, the Corruptors are going down one after the other. The Corruptors are cleaned up, and now we can go for the Broodlords. The Broodlords are exposed. And Tempest, they can push in. Tempest are pushing forward. The base does fall, but the Broodlords, they have to retreat. They have to back off. They have to respect the Tempest. A bit of a misrally. Corruptor gets thrown away. Back up to 4 Corruptors. Getting another Lurker. Yeah, Trigger still just out-trading SHIN. That was a brutal fight earlier. We'll take down an Immortal. Trigger, a lot of his supply is in the ground army. Bear that in mind. Down to 3 Tempest. The Broodlords are still up and running. Again, because of the low Stargate count for Trigger, it takes a lot longer to rebuild that Skytoss army. Low bank, I should say. Low everything. It's a chaotic game state. Another Tempest goes down, and another. Down to 2. But it doesn't look like there are enough Corruptors. Down to 1 Tempest. Again, this ground army does struggle here. Trigger, he cannot push in. Still too many Broods. How many? 8 Broodlords. Trigger taking the Southern Gold. Trigger taking Shin's bases. Getting back into 3 Tempests at a time. Triple Tempest production. And Trigger, he is denied that expansion. Going for a Zealot round by. This time, not much in position to defend. There's a Lurker though. Nice is going to be shut down. The 1 Lurker denying any kind of mining. Shin no longer has a ground army. It's just purely Corruptor Broodlord. And he's going for the dive. Takes down the carrier. Gets 1. Gets a second carrier as well. And are there too many Corruptors? He's going for the Tempest. There's 4 Tempests left. Down to 3. Oh my god, but the overcharge puts in a lot of work. GG gets caught. Shin, he runs out of steam. That is all he had left. He doesn't break the army. And Trigger will take the series 2-0. Whew. GG. Oh my god. GG. Well played, Shin. Running out of bases, running out of resources. That's all he had left. And yeah, very impressive stuff here by Trigger. This was a very chaotic game. Remember, it started with like a quote-unquote cannon rush. I like the verbiage there. It started with a spine crawler rush at the goal base, which was quite successful initially. And Shin had control of the map initially as well, getting into his own Lurker tech, getting into his own Hydras, getting into a robust economy, unlike game 1. But Trigger was able to stabilize. He was able to stabilize, able to keep up, able to eventually get into his Skytoss as well. It was a wild back and forth. GG, well played. A beautiful game. A beautiful game. Congratulations to Trigger. My only regret is that there is no ace match. I would have loved to have seen a game 3 between these two because this was a wild series. Both game 1 and game 2 did deliver with comebacks and yeah, both players recovering from the brink of defeat. GG. GG, well played. Trigger refusing to die in both games, and Trigger will advance on to the grand finals. GG, well played. Congratulations, Trigger does take down Shin 2-0, and now we have our grand finals. The Beyond versus Shin rematch is denied, and Trigger steps up instead. It's going to be Trigger versus Beyond in a best of 5 grand finals. Let's go.